Hey friend, welcome back to the Fit as Flock podcast. I am your host, Lindsey Bush, and today we are going to be talking about how to approach dieting while you are on vacation. So this seems like a very timely topic as we are, 40 some odd days out from our my spring break vacation. So it's on my mind. It's on many of my clients' minds. So I thought I would share some tips, tricks, my thoughts around the best strategy as you approach this, if you will be traveling soon or whether you're going to tuck this into your back pocket and use these tips later down the road. Fittingly, today's episode is brought to you by The Empowered Method, where I help busy women get lean, fit, and strong by shedding fat and limiting beliefs. And the next session starts on February 26th. So if bathing suit season has you any sorts of stressed out, you want to feel more comfortable in your skin, you want to start to focus on your overall health and wellness, please feel free to reach out. The link is in the show notes. You can also reach me by direct message on Instagram. I would love to chat about how I could help you. So with that, let's dive in. So we're going to be talking about vacationing and dieting. So as you get more familiar with me, you'll probably hear me talk about setting your intentions frequently. And I know for some people that can feel a little bit woo-woo, a little bit weird, but what I really mean is taking a step back and really thinking about how you desire to approach all of these various things that we deal with on a daily basis. Being intentional is an absolute game changer. So what do I mean by that? And how does that apply to vacation? So you first need to start, before you even begin making a plan, with what is my intention on this trip? Is it to stay on track? Is it to remain in a calorie deficit? Is it my intention to go middle of the road? So that's always my personal approach, and we'll talk about what each of these looks like. Or is your intention to go into full-on YOLO mode? And I think we can all kind of wrap our brains around what that would look like. So there is no right or wrong. And at the end of this podcast, I'm going to share with you the most important thing, arguably way more important than what you do on the trip or what you plan to do on the trip. So we're going to talk about that. And I'm going to give you some practical tips about how to incorporate all of this into your next trip. So if you are approaching this from the perspective of, I am going to attempt to stay in a calorie deficit. Now, I don't personally love this strategy. I feel like vacations are occasional. We don't get to go on them very often, most of us, and it is a time to enjoy yourself, right? And I think that there's a difference. There is a distinct difference, in my opinion, between enjoying yourself and just going like whole hog wild, going totally rogue on vacation. But going into it in a restrictive mode or feeling like I'm just going to really try to stay on track and adhere to my plan, I don't love that strategy. I think it's really important to give yourself a break. I also think that it's a great opportunity to practice maintenance strategies. So if you can flip your mindset around in terms of saying you're willing to understand that this vacation may slow your progress a little bit, which is really no big deal in the grand scheme of things, it really can be viewed as an opportunity to practice things that you're going to absolutely need to do as you move down the road from a weight loss mode into a maintenance mode. So as I mentioned, the calorie deficit, staying in it on a vacation, is not my favorite strategy, but if you are going to go that route, my recommendations would be to pre-plan your meals and cook if you can. So we know when we eat out, we are consuming usually many more calories than we would if we're cooking from home. So if you can cook wherever you are, wherever it is you're staying, getting groceries and having, a loose meal plan is going to be important. You're probably going to need to take your food scale, which I can tell you I've never personally done. And if you do, there's nothing wrong with this, right? It's all of this is very much a do what's best for you. And you have the agency to make that decision. And no one knows your situation better than you. So if you feel like I have to go on this trip and try to stay in a caloric deficit, try to stay the course, because if I don't, I'm going to fall totally off track and I have this great momentum, then that's okay. Ignore the noise if there are people saying, oh, don't do that, that's too restrictive or whatever. it's not their decision to make. Only you know what's best for you. So while I may sit here and tell you that this is not the strategy that I would typically recommend, again, I'm just here to make recommendations. Ultimately, you need to make the decision that makes the most sense for you and for your own situation. Anyway, back to the staying in a caloric deficit if you're on vacation. Make sure you have protein supplements available. And what I mean by protein supplements, you're probably going to need a protein powder. You're probably going to need some protein bars for grab and go options. Typically when we are on vacation, at least for many of us, it can be chaotic, especially if the kids are around. So we're going to need fast and easy. So having that available is important. Practicing intermittent fasting can be a great strategy as well. So limiting the amount of time in a day that you're consuming calories. Essentially, you can think of this as skipping breakfast. So this is something that I really like to do on vacation, knowing that I'm likely consuming more calories just because of the food that I'm eating, being away from home, and all of those things. I do like to practice intermittent fasting when I'm on vacation. But again, no rules. There's no hard rules that it only has to be this one way. My type A brain really, really struggles with the fact that all of what I teach is a gray area. I would love to be able to put it into black and white terms, but you can't. There's so much gray. Everyone's situation is different. So what I like to do is give you several different ideas that you can kind of ruminate on and determine what's going to make sense for you. What nuggets can you take away and plug and kind of stick in your back pocket and use later. Putting limits on your alcohol consumption if you are attempting to stay in a caloric deficit is a huge piece of this puzzle. So that's the case when you're at home too, right? Because alcohol absolutely has an impact not only on our progress, but also on our bodies and how we are digesting and utilizing the fuel that we're putting into our bodies, and it affects us in many, many ways. So getting your arms around what that looks like should be part of the internal conversation. You know, what is your intention around alcohol? You're probably going to need to put some limitations in place in terms of how many drinks are you allowing yourself to have in a day. So even as I'm saying this, I'm like, man, this sounds restrictive. And so again, only you know if that's what you need to do or you want to do. For me, I probably would not lead with this strategy, as I've already mentioned. You're going to need to work out as close to normal as you usually would. That's going to be also make coming home and staying on track that much easier. So whether you're signing up for a gym for a week period of time, many places have short-term, especially tourist destinations have short-term gym options, or where you're staying has a gym, or you take your resistance bands, or you simply decide that you're going to walk or run on vacation. That is an option too. Making sure that you are focused on daily purposeful movement. So are you getting up? Are you getting in 10,000 steps a day? That's going to be really helpful in terms of making sure that you're staying active, keeping your non-exercise activity high. So that's all a piece of this puzzle as well. Also drinking lots of water. I don't know about you, but even when I go somewhere warm, I still feel like I really struggle to drink the amount of water that I normally drink in a day at home. So we've talked about staying in a calorie deficit. Let's talk a little bit about middle of the road. So that's how not only I personally approach my whole fitness and nutrition strategy at home, but it's also how I approach it on vacation. Nothing's off limits. I'm not going to do anything too crazy, too restrictive. But let me kind of paint the picture of what that could look like on vacation. So I kind of look at it as dealer's choice on how you approach your workouts. So for me, I do it a variety of ways. I personally don't opt to usually go to a gym simply because I don't like public gyms. My husband normally does. He'll get his little, week pass and he'll go to the gym, and I think he likes the change of pace, different scenery, trying, different things or whatever. It's not for me. So for me, if we drive somewhere, typically I'll take a moderate set of dumbbells and I will do, some full body workouts a couple days a week in addition to some walking or some running. If we are going somewhere where I can't take my dumbbells because we're flying or whatever, I will take resistance bands and do something very similar. I've also just said, I'm not bringing anything except my running shoes, and simply ran while I was there. So there's no hard and fast rules around what it needs to look like. Just think about where are you going, what's going to be available to you, what feels good for you. You could also use it as a week, as like a deload week, where you are only focused on your steps and you're not really worried about other workouts, and you're just kind of giving your body some extended rest time, active recovery time. That's also an option. Personally, I don't like to do that because I am so incredibly routine driven that when I don't do my normal routine, I don't feel like myself. So getting up early in the morning and still getting a workout in, that is how I cultivate energy to get throughout my day, to get through the day. So I really don't like to not do that, because then I just don't feel as good. I feel sluggish. And so that's not what works for me. So again, you got to ask yourself, what makes sense for me? What do I feel like would be enjoyable? So many times I will opt to run on vacation because the scenery is prettier here than what we have here in central Indiana. So it's a really nice change of pace from that perspective, and gives me a little more motivation to actually, lace up my running shoes, because it is no secret to anyone that knows me that running is not my favorite thing to do. We have a love-hate relationship. So it's kind of a good opportunity for me to try a different approach to my workouts. For me, when I'm going middle of the road, which is all the time, as I've mentioned, it's always about just staying in routine. It's not about like making gains while I'm on vacation. We're just trying to do what I normally do so I feel my best while I'm there, because that's how I want to feel. I don't want to feel sluggish and tired and depleted while I'm on vacation and should be trying to enjoy myself. I also will lead with protein at every meal. So oftentimes we stay in like an Airbnb or VRBO rental house. And so we will do probably about 50% of the meals that we eat are in, about 50% of them are out. I will typically make a list when we are on our way. I have a list that I just keep in the note section of my phone of things we typically get. And I will Instacart them to wherever it is we're staying. We don't even have to mess with going to the grocery store and waste our precious vacation time on that. So that is a strategy that has worked really well. And so I just recycle things that we've already done. So we make easy things like spaghetti and meat sauce with protein pasta, or, taco night, things that are really easy to throw together, but that we also like. We also eat a lot of our lunches in, but we also eat about half of them out. So, getting some groceries and making some of the meals from where we are staying is typically a part of what we are doing. Having high quality snacks available is also a strategy that really helps. And I really try to avoid grazing on junk food. It's really easy when you go on vacation to kind of have the F-it mentality where it's like, oh, I'm on vacation, so I will, eat Cheetos every afternoon or whatever. And I do some of that. I'm not going to lie to you. I absolutely do. I look at it as like, I'm on vacation. This is a time to indulge if I want to. And so I will absolutely have some of that, but I try not to graze on it because I struggle with the off switch. And so it's like once I start and I kind of break the seal, it's hard to stop. So I do try to have some checks and balances in place because my willpower fatigues very quickly. And I know that about myself. I also try to avoid day drinking. That's a really quick way to pack on the calorie intake. And I just don't feel my best when I have too much to drink, and I just can't handle it like I used to, unfortunately. So I really try to avoid that. I typically have some limits around how many alcoholic beverages I'll have in a day, and that's more just to make sure that I don't overserve myself and end up, wasting days on vacation feeling crummy and hungover or whatever. I just have no interest in that at this point in my life. We also like to make sure that we're getting in 10,000 steps a day. So when we're with kids, really easy, right? Because we're chasing them all around. We're making sure that they don't drown or whatever, or hurt themselves, keeping them entertained. But when we're alone, my husband and I, it's a little bit more difficult. It's easier to, just kind of sit back and relax. But again, it's a great opportunity to get off your buns and go explore where you're at. So keeping that 10,000 steps a day goal is really good. I really enjoy taking a short walk after dinner, and vacation's a great time to do that. We have less demands on our schedules, so that is just something that I personally really enjoy. But again, not going to any extremes. I'm not going to say, oh, we can't go, out to eat, or, oh, I don't take my food scale. I'm not tracking anything. I'm not putting it in my Fitness Pal. I'm simply going, okay, where am I getting my protein in from when I'm eating? Are there some snacks I can grab that have protein in them? Am I making sure that I'm not just like wasting calories by just grazing on food that is just there? And things like that, just really practical strategies that I use in my everyday life. It's really not all that different. So I'm really in maintenance mode right now. And so if you want to know what maintenance looks like for me, it's basically everything I just explained. Nothing's off limits. Before I recorded this video, this podcast, I ate a Krispy Kreme donut. Those are my favorite from the gas station. You can fight me on this. You will never change my mind. I like other ones, but Krispy Kreme with the chocolate and the sprinkles from the gas station, just like slightly tiny bit, like maybe stale, just a little. It's just kryptonite for me. I don't know why, but it is what it is. And so, that's something we don't have regularly. We happen to have it today. And so I had one. So no big deal. But I won't then indulge later in the day in, other things because I already did that. So it's that type of strategy as I go on vacation as well. And like I mentioned, in terms of the workouts, it's really about just staying in what feels like my normal routine, because that is how I personally feel my best. Now for you, you may be saying I need a break from that. There are a lot of people that feel like they don't thrive in a routine. And so if that's you and you need a break from it, take a break from it. Again, this is where the gray area kind of presents itself, is that there is not one right answer. You may be saying, I need a break from all the things. I want to watch what I eat so that I don't feel like crap when I go home. But all this other stuff, all this working out and getting up early, I want to be able to sleep in. If that's how you feel, you should absolutely do it, because vacations are a time to live and enjoy yourself and make memories. It is not, in my opinion, a time to restrict and white knuckle and things like that. But again, no right or wrong answer. Only you know the approach that makes the most sense for you. And the third and final approach would be going into full-on YOLO mode. And so you only live once. You're going to live your best life. You're going to eat whatever you want. You're going to drink whatever you want. And then you're going to come home and get back on track, hopefully. So we're going to talk about that. I don't personally love to go into full-on YOLO mode because I don't feel my best. When I eat bad, I tend to feel bad. I might not in the moment, but when I get home, it's never good. I don't like the feeling of the inflammation and the sluggishness and all of that. I find that the longer that I eat healthier, the worse my body is able to handle. My body just can't handle going way off of it very well. So it's kind of a blessing and a curse in a way, because mentally I'll be like, oh, I want that and I'll have it. I'm thinking about this past weekend, my husband and I decided to order tacos from this local taco joint. We haven't had it in a really long time and we both like it. But the crazy thing is, neither of our bodies reacted well to it at all. We both woke up the next day and we really didn't overindulge. I had 2 hard-shelled tacos. That was it. So it's not like I, went rogue and had all of these things. But my fingers were puffy. My face was puffy from water retention and inflammation. And that's not normal for me. And so instantly I knew that. And he was the same way. He woke up the same. He was like, my face is bloated. I don't where is this coming from? And I'm like, it's absolutely coming from the food, because 1, it's going on for both of us, and 2, that's not our normal. So I don't like that feeling coming off of vacation. So YOLO mode is typically not the mode that I go into. I will absolutely order whatever I want when we're out to eat. But again, I tend to lean more towards focusing on protein and probably not ordering the most unhealthy thing on the menu, because that's just not how I feel my best. But again, No right or wrong. So you got to do you. You've got to figure out what feels right from an approach perspective for you. More importantly, as I promised at the beginning of this, that I was going to tell you something, a secret that is more important than any of the other things I just told you. What matters more than anything else is what you do when you return home. I cannot even begin to tell you the number of clients that come to me and they say, they have an intake form and they're telling me about themselves, or they introduce themselves and they say, oh my gosh, I was in such a good place and I had this routine and I was working out and I was eating healthy, and then we went on vacation and then I just never got back on track. It's not because they're weak. It's not because they're a failure. It's because it's hard, right? You get out of your routine and then you come home and there's laundry everywhere and, the kids are crazy and everybody's off their normal routine, and then you got to get back into it. It's not easy, but you can make it easier on yourself. First and foremost, my biggest tip for vacation: if you can make a meal plan and a grocery list before you ever leave, you are going to set yourself up to have a much more successful return home and return to your normal routine. And I always tell people, when you make this meal plan, your return from vacation meal plan before you go, make it super simple. Like, don't overcomplicate it. Make it things that you throw in the crock pot, grab and go. The more important thing is that you've got a plan and you know what groceries you need. If you are in a place where you can have groceries delivered as soon as you get home so that you don't have to waste time going out and getting them, by all means do it. So I always have an Instacart order delivered when we get home. It just makes life so much easier, because truly getting right back on track is key. Because what tends to happen is people get back, the house is a mess, there's all this laundry, there's all these things, there's all the mail you need to go through and whatever, and your house might be a mess, or maybe you cleaned it up before you went. That's another really good tip, trying to clean your house before you go so that when you come home, you're just lowering that stress level. You're taking one more thing off the list. So I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to pretend like I am the one that is personally running around and doing all of these things. Yes, I pack for myself and my 2 kids, and I pack some, there's all these random things that I end up packing for Sam, but I will try to have my cleaning lady come while we are gone. And this is just me telling you that it's like, I'm not doing it all. I'm doing as much as I can and outsourcing what I feel like I can't, or where I can. I'm not someone that can have like a personal assistant and a chef and all these things. But I can budget to have somebody come clean my house, and I can also budget to have grocery delivery. And that is just something that has worked well for us. So everybody's situation is going to be different. I just want to be transparent. I don't want you to see this highlight reel and think like, oh my gosh, she just has it all together, because I don't. I truly don't. And so I just think it's really important to be transparent about that. Everything always feels a little wonky and out of sorts when you're coming off vacation. So getting right back on track in terms of your normal daily routine and your workouts and your wake up time and all of that is really important. Because you don't want to let the chaos of coming home sweep you away. So even if that means that you leave the house a little messier, laundry from vacation sits longer, and it's overflowing for a few days as you re-find your footing, I would absolutely prioritize your schedule, your routine, all of that, way over all of those other things, over the laundry, over the cleaning the house. I know for many of us, like for me, I don't thrive when my house is in chaos, but it ain't going anywhere. There's a time to fix it. There will be time. You've never not done it in the past, right? You always figure it out. That is the self-talk that I tell myself, because I have to talk myself out of the pressure of like, I got to get the laundry done, and I got to clean the house, and I got to do this, and I've got to do that. No, I focus on food. What are we eating? And my routine. Now, a couple tips that just popped into my head that I just want to be sure to share with you is that on vacation, I do try to stick to and within an hour of my normal wake and sleep time. Now, I will be really honest with you and say that there are times that it's not just an hour. It might push into like I stay up 2 hours later and I wake up like an hour or two later. But trying to keep that that routine, it makes coming home easier. Obviously, we have 2 young kids. I've got one that still naps, and the older one, my first grader, he can stay up a little bit later, but the 3-year-old, not so much. So we keep them on a relatively normal routine, because if we don't, y'all know what that looks like. Or you can imagine. And so doing that is a big part of what I do on vacation. I try not to mess up my circadian rhythm too terribly much. And the other thing is that if we stay in like an Airbnb or a VRBO home that we're renting, I will do all of the dirty laundry before we leave. So I'll do it all at the house. And then when we come home, I don't have any dirty laundry to do. All I need to do is put it away. So that has served me really well. It's kind of annoying in the moment, but one of the self-coaching tools that I use is I ask myself, what's something that I can do today that my future self will thank me for? And that's one of them. It's getting that laundry done and out of the way. I freaking hate laundry. It is the bane of my existence. So doing it while I'm there, I'll look out the window to beautiful settings, and I just do the little bit that we have. It's usually not crazy because we're gone for like a week. And so that has served me well. I should have put that earlier in the episode, but I digress. So that is kind of my high level overview of being intentional, setting your intentions around how to handle vacation, and determining which one makes sense for you. So if this episode, if this information resonated with you, please share this episode on your Instagram stories and tag me at Lindsey D. Bush. I would really, really appreciate it. Sharing is really the only way that this podcast grows. You also never know who might need this message or could walk away with a nugget or two. So thank you so much for listening. And I look forward to chatting with y'all in the next one.